So I guess there's going to be a part 3. I knew there would be. You know, this is the biggest problem facing the body. Division, disunity. You know, it's funny. We're accused of being a cult by those in Christianity. I don't know. We're a little bit disjointed to be called a cult. Oh, there's way too much stuff. I mean, you know, cults are pretty much forced, and you must do everything exactly according to the cult. We allow a lot of wiggle room. And I'm not saying we shouldn't, but you should be able to walk out your own salvation, but also walk in unity at the same time. We don't have to agree on everything as we're seeing through the glass darkly, and we're going to talk about these things next week in part 3. But we have to understand it's Yeshua's prayer. And Paul understood that when he said that we should be of one mind and one opinion. But right now, we got a room with about 40 people in here. I promise you we got at least 40 opinions. Now, some opinions might match, some might not. Depends on what the question is. I ask a question about calendars, we're going to have a lot of opinions. I ask it about Godhead. I ask about Sabbath keeping, kashrut. Whatever it is, there's going to be different opinions. So, feast days, tithing, lots of opinions. And I get emailed those opinions every day. So does Robert. Right, Robert? We get those things every day. Lots of opinions. As a matter of fact, what's even more of a struggle is people don't understand my opinion when I say it, and so they'll misunderstand what I said, and then they'll start arguing against something I didn't even say. Because communication is so tough. You know? I think the hardest thing we do as human beings is to have whatever comes out of our mouth received exactly the way we intended it. So tough. So tough. All right, so this is what we call Afterburn. So this is the time where if you have a comment or question about the teaching, you could go ahead and raise your hand, or on live stream you could type it in, and Craig will go ahead and mark that down. And so we'll begin with, where's the mic? Rabbi Tom. Rabbi Tom, go ahead.
Would you explain, if it is possible, how we could have diversity in unity?
How we can have diversity in unity.
Yeah. If it is possible.
It is possible.
Okay.
Okay, I'll give one example. Diversity in unity. Okay? Let's say, and we're going to teach this after the unity division. We'll talk about the calendar, which is one of the most divided or divisive issues that divides the body. Let's say, for example, that the leadership here is using the Hillel II calendar, and you are using a sighted moon, crescent moon calendar. So how can we have diversity and unity? Well, you know what? Do what you need to do to keep your sighted moon, crescent moon calendar. By the way, there's like 47 other versions. I'm just picking one for example. Okay, so I'm picking 2 different calendars. I could have picked any 2. But let me just say, let's say I was picking the dark moon and the crescent moon. You guys are not going to be on the same day. But for unity's sake, you gather together on the day that the leadership has picked. So for unity, you come together. For diversity, you have integrity, do what it is that you feel you're supposed to do. Does that make sense? Diversity and unity. Because the one opinion, when we have one mind and one opinion, the opinion is we should do the things together. That's the opinion. Okay, and by the way, it's your opinion that the sighted moon, crescent moon, dark moon, whatever moon calendar that's only your opinion. Oh, no, it's not. I can prove from Scripture, and yes, so can the other side. That's part of the problem. I've sat in debates, and then when it was my turn, I stood up and said, did everybody notice that each side had a very solid argument? Each side had tons of verses to try to back their argument, and each side didn't hear a word the other side said. So where's the fruit? Did either side make any headway convincing each other? Have you ever sat in a calendar argument and seen one side actually convince the other side of anything? Never, because we're entrenched. We find ourselves in an intractable position. Why? Because we're not mature enough to get unentrenched, to jump out of the pit or the track that we're stuck in. It takes a maturity to do that. But I'm not asking you, oh, you're asking me to compromise. No, I'm asking you to use the wisdom and follow Scripture to be unified. Have integrity. All of you have heard me for all the years I've been teaching say, you do what you believe you need to do because you're walking out your own salvation. But you should come and be a part of the group. And you're going to understand the first teaching I'm going to do is about making the calendar decision, how we make that decision, and why I made the decision I made. Because I had to deal with the reality that in a room of 40 people, there's at least 8 different ways, minimum, that people are doing the calendar. Minimum 8. And so how do we have unity? We can't, if you're doing the dark moon, the crescent moon, and Hillel, we could be doing every holy day 3 days. But wait, it's worse. What if you're doing the crescent moon here where you live, and other person doing it based on the crescent moon in Jerusalem? What if you're doing the dark based on here where you live or based on Jerusalem? Oh, now, depending on where you live, again, you could be off by a day and you're using the same moon. So we could keep every holy day for a week because that'll cover everybody's way of figuring it out. So go ahead, you can fast on Yom Kippur for 5 or 6 days. Have fun. You see, it's an intractable situation. So now Abba, and then this is what we have to understand. And I'll talk about this again when I do the teaching, but you can get a preview now. This is about emotional maturity. Abba is allowing the fire of this situation with calendars and whatever the other issues are, Godhead, because everybody wants to fight about the nature of the Godhead and the nature of Yeshua. People want to argue about, tithing, Sabbath keeping, feast keeping. I mean, that's about the 5 or 6 things, that's it, that we always fight about. And some of the traditions that we do. But the thing is, as we fight about all of these things, and we're arguing about all of these things, Abba's allowed it. Why? He wants to see, are we ever going to find wisdom in how to handle these things? He's looking for, in our wilderness walk, I called it a wilderness wisdom decision. In other words, accepting that the issue is intractable. In other words, we're not going to get everybody on the same page. How do we handle that? See, that's the ultimate part of the unity and division. We have division because those who agree will gather together until they realize they only agreed on that one point. There's something else now they don't agree on. So all of you crescent mooners, conjunction mooners, Hillel calendar people, okay, great. You're all meeting together. And then you find out that you don't agree about feast keeping or Sabbath keeping. So now you're going to split over something different. So now you're going to go find the one person in the world, if you can find one, that agrees with you on everything. That person doesn't exist. I promise you. You can try. But if you and I sat down long enough, even if we agree on everything up to a point, at some point we won't. I don't care if you're husband and wife, brother and sister, parent and child, best friends, you're not going to agree on everything. So can we accept that as reality? See, our problem is we're not wanting to walk in reality. Okay? We don't want to accept the reality. No, everybody, if they would just do it the way I want, everything would be great. Good. The other guy's feeling the same way. So now where are you? We're back to square one. Well, if everybody would just do it my way, it would be perfect. Sure, it would. If everybody would do it my way, everything would work great. And every one of you can say the same thing. If everybody would just do it your way, there'd be no issues. But you can't get everybody to do that. And that's not what Abba wants either. He wants us to deal with what he's allowed us to have, which is this certain amount of issue and confusion of disagreement. Now, on top of all that, okay, that he allowed all this to be this, we can see what's going on. This is why we see that all of the unity issues come to a head when Yeshua shows up with his rod of iron and says, I am now going to force the issue. So we will have an issue forced at some point. I recommend plan A over plan B. Plan A is we figure it out ourselves for a while and start getting in line with it so that when he comes and shows up, we're all ready to jump on his bandwagon, whatever that is. See, but if he comes and says, well, this is the reality and that was not the way you saw it, you may actually argue with Messiah. I'm serious. Because after all, you already killed half of your brothers and sisters over the issue. You did. Oh, you attacked them and beat them up and told them what idiots they were, and now to find out they were right and you were wrong? Well, that's impossible. Really? Do we have to play the "have you ever been wrong" game? I mean, we could play that next week and we'll put it on the recording. See, but that's our blindness. That's our selfish, blind, out of control pride and ego. See, I've already wanted to go into next week's teaching.
Is it in 1 Corinthians 10:11 where it talks about that there would be like a repeat of what happened in the Exodus under Moses? These were the types.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I was wondering, would you see a way of bringing some kind of a harmony of unity in that? That's kind of like a prophecy. Do you see that being a prophecy? You know, before Yahshua comes, we see a leader that's like Moses that brings all the unity together, or something like that.
Well, I'm going to agree with you. I really appreciate your point, actually. It's a very good point. One of the points that I will bring up, which I will bring up when I do the rest of this teaching or in the calendar teaching, is about the idea that I believe in types and shadows. In other words, that the Exodus from Egypt was an example of what we're going to expect in the greater Exodus. And so we should look at what actually happened. See, people want to focus on they came out of Egypt. Yes, but more than that happened. The first thing that happened was he reset the calendar. So when we do get to that final Exodus where we are all coming out of her and being drawn back together into one nation, there will be a resetting of our calendar, I promise you. And I believe it will be done just like it was with Moses. Abba is going to do it. Okay, Yahweh said to Moses, this is the calendar. Now, who is he going to tell when that happens? It may be Yeshua himself doing it when he comes in the cloud, in the twinkling, and he starts all of the stuff when he lands on the earth. He'll reset the calendar after he wipes out the armies of darkness that are standing to fight against him. I don't know how that's going to play out, but what I do know, and I thank Randy for bringing this up, is that is what's going to happen. Stop thinking that we're supposed to figure it out before it gets reset from above. Because that's what happened with Moses. Now, unless we're going to believe we have a Moses, now maybe we'll have a Moses in one of the two witnesses. Maybe they will have authority to reset everything when we get the two witnesses of Revelation. And then they'll have authority to say, this is what it is. But until then, we're like the Israelites in Egypt. We're just groping around. We don't know what we're doing. So let's wait for Abba to reset it. And don't think, this is the way the pride comes, well, Abba called me to be the one that resets it. Really? I hope you're right, because if you're wrong, you'll be in a lot of trouble. Don't claim Yahweh said when Yahweh hadn't said. That's Ezekiel 22. Don't go through those processes. Very important. Thank you for bringing that up, Randy. And we will be talking about that more through the rest of this teaching, and if not here, it'll be in the calendar teaching. This whole idea of understanding it's a type and shadow thing. Let Abba do what he does the way he does it. He gives us hints. But where do you see the guy coming up to Moses? Hey, Moses, I figured this out. Where did the lay person go to the leader and say, hey, Abba told me and fixed it all, and here it is? The leader got it directly from on high, and that leader was already in leadership. So at the very minimum, that's our example. Okay, Moses was not, Yahweh did not use some person of the community to go tell Moses, here's how to do the calendar. It was a direct download. And I believe that's the way it will look when it happens again. But it'll be through the leadership. It's not going to come from the laity. It's not going to come from those sitting in the chairs. That's not the way he does it.
Regarding the ownership mindset, would a more appropriate mindset to be, I am now part of this group and I am now part of him and her regarding marriage?
Okay, let me put this in there. This is actually a very good one. I think if I can think of it, maybe I can write it in here. Well, it'll be in the Afterburn anyway. when you get married, when you come and join a congregation, when you take a job at a company, you are joining yourself to something that already exists. Okay? Same thing with the olive tree of Romans 11. You're grafting into something, okay, and the something isn't grafting into you. So yes, that's the right attitude, whoever it was that typed that in, that be mindful of the fact that you are grafting into something and it already exists, and it doesn't necessarily need you to fix it or change it. As a matter of fact, you may need it to change you. That's why you're going ahead and joining yourself to it. And see, that's where we run into problems. Okay? That's where we run into problems. And so that's the mindset. See, but what I'm saying is, unfortunately, what people tend to do is they take ownership, and now it's not just the congregation I attend, it's my congregation. And anything that's mine, I should have a say in. Because after all, it's mine. I should have some authority if it's mine. And that's where we have that problem. Okay? Look, we have this in husbands and wives, and I'm not trying to give the men a pass. The men have dropped the ball considerably. But women are joining themselves to the man and attaching themselves to the man to be a part of the man, because after all, the woman was taken from the man and now is being returned to the man, and the woman was told that she was being brought to the man to be his helper. Almost all the women I talk to think that the man was brought together with them to be her helper. The man's not there to be your helper, he's there to be your provider and protector. So we'll have a whole different, now of course the men are dropping that ball, that's a big problem. Okay? But we have to understand the things that are what they are. A congregation is here to serve certain needs for you, that you can come and get those needs met. The congregation doesn't exist waiting for you to show up and set it straight. That's not why the congregation exists. It hasn't been sitting around just waiting for you to come in with your brilliance to fix everything. Does that make sense? All right? But we have the pride and ego to think it's the other way around. That doesn't mean that you can't go to the leadership and say, I have a thought. Have you considered? And you know what? It may be brilliant. And the leadership, if they have wisdom and discernment, may say, that's great, we're going to do that. But it also could be that the ministry that you're joining, linking in with or whatever, they've been doing this for more than 5 minutes, hopefully, and they probably have already considered what you were bringing up, and they have reasons why they haven't chosen to go that way. We've had people give us grief about our choice of order of service. I can promise you we tried many before we got to this one. This is the one that works best for us. There's no scriptural, by the way, instruction on how to run a service. But this is the one that we've chosen. So if you don't like the way we do it or have a better way to do it, understand we've already gone through that over and over again, and this is what we've chosen. Okay, it's not like we just chose this and got stuck with it. We've actually chose several, and we've altered things over the last, almost 20 years of trying different things. Does that make sense? Okay, that we might have done that. And so realize those things when you come in, that, hey, you didn't just have this brilliant idea. Maybe when you bring it up, they maybe didn't think of it. That's great. But be ready for the possibility that they've already thought of it and it's just not something they want to do. And don't have an attitude about it if they don't just, I'm all offended now. They didn't take my suggestion. Why do they have to take your suggestion? I need to provide you with a place to come and meet with Yahweh, hear the word, learn, enjoy each other's company, and go home. I don't have to. Not just me. Any leader does not have to dictate from your opinions. Is that fair? Think about the mess this would be if everybody could come on and change everything by their opinion, considering there's 40 of you with your own opinions. How would I then please everybody when your opinions don't match? Well, we take a vote. Well, when you take a vote, what if everybody doesn't agree? So that means some of the people are going to get their vote ignored, or they're going to lose, and now they're going to be upset and likely leave. It's foolishness. It's unnecessary.
If you leave or have left a Christian church, become Torah observant, is that dividing the body?
No. Look, leaving is not causing division. Getting everybody else to come with you is causing division. In other words, you were going to a Christian church. I even have attended a Messianic congregation where at some point I realized this isn't working for me. And so you know what I did? I left. Did I tell anybody? No. Did I try to convince anybody to go with me? No. If anybody ever contacted me, if they asked me, well, why'd you leave? I said, it wasn't working for me. What wasn't working? It's personal. I don't need to influence other people. They have to walk out their own journey. Maybe they need to be in that place for a period of time because there's something they're supposed to get there. Look, all of you, I'm going to go out on a limb here, were in churches. And you know what? You needed some of the stuff that happened there. You did. You learned things. It changed certain things in your life. Some of you broke tremendously bad lifestyle habits and other things while you were in those churches. So for you, it was a useful part of a journey. And so I'm not going to say to somebody who's going someplace that I wouldn't go, well, maybe they need to finish that journey out. But that's when I'll talk to them to find out why they're still there. If they're still there just because they like it and because they're afraid to make the change, I might encourage them, because they already know they need to. Okay, I'll encourage them to get out. But if they have not been led to that point yet, where Abba hasn't disturbed their peace yet, well, then they need to stay. But it's not divisive. Divisive is for me to come over to you and say, you believe that, Rabbi? Can you believe what he's saying over there? Oh, you guys don't agree with that calendar he does, do you? Are you buying into that? That's causing division. It's also Lashon Hara. It's evil tongue. It's casting a negative aspersions, a negative light against another person. So no, I've said this often. If the leader is so wrong in your opinion, then you should leave quietly. Start your own thing if you're so smart. By the way, I see very rarely most of these people that whine and complain and criticize in all my videos. I don't see their website. I don't see their teachings. And I often ask them, do you have a teaching on this? And they do. It's somebody else's. I said, no, yours. Where's your teaching? If you're going to teach me and tell me I'm wrong, where's your teaching? Put it out there for everybody. But don't put it out there like some have done, saying, this is why Rabbi Berkson's wrong. No, just teach your opinion that's right and let it be a contrast to what I'm teaching. Let people make their own choice. So hopefully they answer the question. No, it is not causing division when you divide and leave. It's causing division when you try to get others to do the same. Hopefully that makes sense. Because what did Proverbs 6:16 say? Okay, it said the one causing, actually I think it was by verse 19, the one who causes strife. In other words, who's sitting there stirring the brethren up to split. See, we had somebody here once, I'm not going to mention who it was, who left. But you know what he did when he left? He emailed everybody, called everybody, visited them at their house to try to kill the congregation and get them to leave. That's wrong. Leaving wasn't wrong. He didn't agree with me on some things. That's fine. What was wrong was trying to get everybody else to go with him. Does that make sense now? Okay? That's breaking the scripture. And he should have been ashamed of himself for doing that, because that's a problem. So if you are off in the corner during the oneg trying to push your calendar, trying to push your belief about marriage and divorce, which is one I didn't mention, but it's another one we all fight about, or your position about tithing, if you're trying to push your position on members of the congregation, if it conflicts with the teacher, keep your mouth shut. It's not for you to convince everybody in the congregation now that you're the teacher. Maybe I'm wrong to say that. I'm going to get all kinds of nasty emails because I said that. It's not for you to teach the people in the group differently than the teacher. Am I wrong in saying that? If you don't agree with the teacher, then put out your own teaching and go someplace else. But don't sit there telling everybody in the back seats like a peanut gallery, well, the rabbi's wrong about that one. And by the way, if somebody comes up to you, you shut that down immediately and say, I'm not interested in hearing that. If you disagree with him, that's fine. You go talk to him. Don't talk to me about what you disagree with him about. See, but that's the causes the division, is all the little groups sit around in the corners after services or before services pushing their stuff. Or they bring stuff with them to a Sukkot or a Passover event, and they're handing out their stuff. Or they think all of a sudden, because they see the virtual map, that now all those people are now their spam list that they can spam with all of their stuff. Okay, I want to say this without pride and ego. These are my students, as Abba has given them. And as long as they're my students, they're not your students. Respect that. Now, if you go out there and start something and they choose to go follow you and listen to you and they become your students, fine, tell them anything you want. But respect for the moment, if they're somebody else's students, that they actually are that person's students. And all you're going to cause is division and confusion, unless you talk only to the teacher. Am I being fair? Okay? I'm not going to go to, let's say, Monty Judah or we'll just use him for an example, or any of these other guys that have big ministries, and start contacting all of his students and saying, I disagree with him on something, which I can't name anything particular that I disagree, but I'm just saying is to try to convince them not to listen and follow their teacher. Now, my students and his students can find his teachings and my teachings very easily on the internet, choose what they want to choose, and then make their own decisions. But I'm not going to contact somebody else's students and try to convince them something that's different than what the teacher's saying. That's scripturally incorrect. That's when we screw up and we make a bad choice. If you find a teacher that you believe is more correct and in line with where your journey is, follow that teacher. Go become a disciple. Get in relationship with that teacher. But the problem is that's not what you guys do. You know what you do? You like so-and-so's teaching on this, and so-and-so, oh, there's other person's teaching on that, and there's other person's teaching on this other thing, and so you got 17 teachers. Because you're picking and choosing which one you like on a particular subject. Well, that's foolishness too. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox.
If you could please repeat your comments over 1 Corinthians 3:15. She says that several translations sound just as unclear.
If anyone's work is burned, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, but as so through fire. I've answered this in the baptism of fire teaching. I think I answered it today. The whole thing, follow the story. The thing is, there's no other foundation you can build on but Messiah. And so what's going to show it is that there's going to be fire that comes involved to show whether or not you built it correctly. Did you build it on Messiah? And it says, as through fire. In other words, if the fire is allowed to do what it's supposed to do, and you receive that instruction, that guidance you get by realizing that you didn't build well, that through that process you'll be saved. Because we need to go through the process, and that's the baptism of fire teaching, of where you are washed clean, you're instructed, you're tested by fire, then you go back and get washed clean again. And then you get built again, and then you get tested by fire. And so that process leads to salvation if you allow and participate without stopping in the process. But if it just burned down, you go, forget it, I quit. Well, guess what? You're done. You put in all that effort, built it wrong, and instead of learning the lesson that because you built it the way you wanted to build it instead of the way he did, if you just say forget it and quit, or if you keep going and rebuilding it your way and it keeps burning down, and you keep building it your way and it keeps burning, when are you going to get the hint? So I think that verse is talking about that. I don't know how it's translated in other translations, but I think it's pretty clear that that verse, in the context of the whole thing, is not saying, well, build it any way you want, and of course, if you do, it's wrong if it's not built this way. Hey, but if it burns down, you're still saved. Then what's it matter how you build it? See, Abba's not the author of confusion. He's not irrational and illogical. It'd be completely irrational and illogical, which most of Christianity's teachings when it comes to this stuff are illogical and irrational. I'm not trying to be mocking or any way. But it's illogical. It makes no sense that all of these things are said you have to do, you have to do, you have to do. Hey, but if you don't, you're still saved anyway. See, that makes no sense. It's completely irrational. Then why do anything? What's the point? If you don't have to do anything and there's no point, why are we all sitting around living this life and miserable? Why doesn't he just come and take everybody who didn't without just doing anything? Just, we all know he's Messiah. Good. So that's all we need to do? Fine. Why isn't he here now just taking us all in? Because he wants us to be tested through fire and demonstrate and show that we know how to build this house correctly. That we're going to build it on the foundation of Yeshua and become like him. And that's what it is. It's as simple as that.
Some confusion in 1 Corinthians 1:12 as to why Yeshua was included in that list by Paul, since we are indeed supposed to be in Messiah. Can you please explain?
I wish I'd remembered to say that during the teaching. Because we have this wonderful group of people that claim they're getting direct downloads. Oh no, I get taught by Messiah directly. Those people cause more problems than I have of Apollos and I am of Paul people. Oh no, the Ruach teaches me directly. Oh, I don't need a teacher. Messiah teaches me directly. That's what's going on here in 1 Corinthians chapter 1. Those who say, I am of Messiah, I don't need a teacher. I don't need Kepha or Paul or nobody. I get directly from Messiah. Does that make sense to everyone? That's the problem there? Yes, we are all supposed to be of Messiah. That's not what these people are claiming. These people claim, oh, I get direct download. I don't need a teacher. I don't need to follow Yaakov or Kepha or Shaul or any of the apostles. Yaakov is, being the head one, okay, in the Jerusalem. Oh no, I get a direct download. You don't see these guys on the internet all the time now? Oh, we don't need teachers anymore. We have the Ruach. Anybody looked at the body lately? Is that working real well? Is the Ruach divided? That's what Paul says. Is Messiah divided? Oh, we're all learning from the Ruach. Oh, we all get direct downloads, really? And that's why we're all on 75 different pages? I don't think the Ruach is confused. I'm going to lay my money on we're confused.
I just want to thank you for bringing up the difficulty in just coming to realize there are certain things that Yahweh calls us to follow and do according to the law and traditions. And I did a study a little bit ago that talked about name Israel, how Jacob's name was changed to Israel, and how it means to struggle. And it's really a good thing, because if you're struggling, like my daughter is right now.
Well, she wants the mic.
Yeah, she wants to talk to you.
Soon.
Yeah, soon.
Soon enough.
It's just when you're struggling, it's not a bad thing. So for anyone who is, I just want to encourage you in that, because I struggle with pretty much everything Yahweh tells me daily, which is not a bad thing in and of itself.
Amen.
So.
But let me just take what you said and say this. When you're struggling, stop trying to point the finger at everybody else. Well, I'm struggling because Rabbi won't do this or Rabbi does that. Or I'm struggling because so-and-so in the congregation is doing. Stop pointing at everybody else. You're struggling because Abba wanted you to learn something. Okay, so enjoy the struggle, embrace the struggle, and say, Abba, what was I supposed to get out of this struggle? And stop blaming everybody for the struggle. That's where we have the breakdown.